A very good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to uLaw's CPD webinar. Topic for today's session is Law Office Matter Management. I will be posting the attendance link and the topic details on the chat window. Request to be stay tuned at this chat window at any point. For any questions and also for the attendance link that will be posted at the beginning as well as at the end of the webinar. Please do use the audio through phone if you're having any difficulty hearing me, and I request each and every one of you to stay here until 3:05 Eastern Standard Time for making note of any useful links that we'll be sharing for your resources for better practice management, as well as the attendance link, which will once again be posted towards the end of the webinar. This webinar will be entitled for 1 hour of professionalism CPD credits. I repeat, it is entitled for professionalism CPD credits across various provinces in Canada, which is including Ontario, British Columbia, Alberta, and New Brunswick. As you all know that Law Office Matter Management is particularly a topic that focuses on your client matter management. That includes right from the time you intake a client to creating a file, as well as making note of the dockets or any other entries that happens within a file. So the focus here is purely on a matter management, which includes anything that relates to a client's matter. Right from the time, like I said, with creating a matter to adding in dockets, raising invoices, doing any due diligence in the same lines, which includes, let's say, trust transfer to be done only after raising an invoice, and a Form 9A if you're in Ontario needs to be created if you're doing a trust transfer using electronic mode, and many other things. So we're going to look into all of that, which even includes generating a few documents if it is a matter that is ongoing for more than a quarter. So there are some quarterly statements, there are some annual statements that needs to be provided to your client if it is an ongoing file, especially for more than a quarter. We're going to look into all of these minute details, which has most of the time been not brought into light, but we feel as part of the matter management, they're highly important for you to pay attention to these sort of things, which even includes docketing, rate management, additional parties to be entered properly and shown on the file, so that, you know, especially when you're doing any code forms related stuff, you can probably show who are these additional parties and how do you handle them in a file. I know many of you are joining in a little late, but do not panic if you cannot see the attendance link or the the topic information. I will try and post them every once in 15 minutes. If not, you would probably see it towards the end of the session on the chat window. Please use the chat window to ask any questions, especially with regards to today's topic. I will be handling the webinar until 2:45, and then the last 15 minutes, I will walk you all through, how these things can be done using uLaw, especially because I represent uLaw. I'd like to walk you all through how a good matter management can be achieved by using uLaw. Once again, welcoming all of you to today's webinar. Thank you for staying there for the last 5 minutes while we have everyone joining in. Okay, get quickly started with today's agenda. As you all see, it includes how to create a matter, what is the matter life cycle, what are the necessary compliance documents that one needs to generate if you are creating a matter? How do you handle retainers? When do you give them receipts? And what are non-engagement letters? What are the law society requirements when you create a matter or a file? What are disbursements? How do you record the disbursements? Of course, there's a separate topic on disbursements. I think in one of the upcoming weeks, we have disbursements demystified. We also have matter document management, docketing with rate management, additional parties, matter analytics, and more. Yes, it is a little vast topic, but we'll try and cover them as much as possible in the next 40 minutes. Starting off with client intake, any matter management, the starting point to a proper matter management is a proper client intake. Now, if I have to deal with a matter at any level, I need to start off with a great client intake. I need to make sure that, one needs to make sure that all of the details of the client has been recorded, consultations have been made, and they have been docketed. Conflict checks has been conducted with effect from 1st of Jan 2024. We even have the virtual verification in place mandated by Law Society, which is also doable right now in uLaw. And determining what are the fees, how are your clients going to pay it. All of these things contribute to a better matter management, because at the very first instance that you are going to collect a fee into the trust. It is going to be a retainer, so you need to raise a retainer agreement. Now, when you are doing so, you also know that you need to provide a client with a trust retainer receipt, because you have collected money into trust and you would like to show a proof, or rather provide a receipt to your client, thanking them for the payment into the respective bank account. And if none of these are happening and you're not able to take this into the next level, what you do is provide your client with a non-engagement letter. By doing so, you are not at stake if there's anything that is happening wrong, or if you're not being held responsible for any of the acts that are being done by a client. And since you are issuing a non-engagement letter, you are no more responsible for any such activities done by them. So client intake, service, and communication is number one key to the matter management. It is the basic step before a matter is being created, a file is being created, and you go on into the next level. While you create a matter, some points to be kept in mind are definitely the client intake, service, communication, alongside with a proper conflict check and the file management. Now, when you take file management, the first thing that comes into one's mind is a file checklist. I don't know how many of you here maintain a file checklist. Previously, when files are being in a physical format, maintained in a physical format, we've all seen that the first page is more or less like an index where you have a nice checklist, and you would have seen a lot of check marks in there saying, okay, this file has a client intake form. It has a client's ID verification done. It has, the file number and other things that comes along with it, like a retainer agreement and a receipt, a bank statement, or a copy of the transfer, or any other proof of receipt from the bank side that the payment has come in. So all of these forms part of the file checklist, and one of them is definitely very important for maintaining the matter or the file without any issues. And while that is being done, the file checklist is where you kickstart the file management or a proper file management with. moving on to definitely using a separate practice of having a separate file number for each and every file or matter that you maintain in your firm. Now, it could be said that a client can come with two issues to you because let's say you're a paralegal, or let's say you're a family lawyer and a wills and estate lawyer, and you have the same client coming or reaching out to you for both the files or both the cases, and you would need to separate them from each and every matter because you would want to make sure that one of the file numbers are created for family file and the other file number is attributed to the wills and estate file, because you don't want to confuse the work between the both, and hence a separate file number for each and every file or a matter is recommended even though they are the same client. And a chronological secured organization of electronic files, especially with all of it becoming electronic today, things are moving virtual, things are moving on cloud, and maintaining an electronic file numbering system is highly important for you. And you also have a proper organization through numeric and cross-indexing, and one of them is definitely an alphanumeric system, where in uLaw as well you would see that each and every file would have a attributed alphanumeric number, and they are completely unique and they do not match any of your serial number or any of a sequential number rather. So it is always important to have a unique cross-indexing number to each and every file. Now, as you go in, you also have some of the professional obligations that one has to fulfill when it comes to creating a retainer agreement. As part of a matter management, one of the first few agreements that comes into place is definitely a retainer agreement. Now, when you take a retainer agreement, it shows you clearly the nature and scope of the matter and the responsibilities of a client and a legal professional, all the course of action that needs to be taken from both the ends, and the method and frequency of communication. What do you prefer the most? And, when you take, a specific client, would they like to be communicated through email or through phone call, or vice versa? What is the practice at your office, whether you generally send them an email followed by a phone call? All of those needs to be mentioned in the method and frequency of communication. And you also prepare a retainer arrangement saying that upon signing the retainer agreement, so-and-so is payable, and you also need a bit more at installment or increments, which is called every time you need a retainer replenishment needs to be arranged. So all of these falls under the retainer arrangements and retainer termination details. Every legal practitioner needs to enter into a client confidentiality. So these are some points that you can incorporate in your retainer agreement, which is recommended by Law Society, at the same time are appreciated by your client as well, because any client would like to have their information maintained with high confidentiality, and when you enter into a retainer agreement, these are few things that you make sure is available in your retainer agreement. And any other risks that's associated with the method of communication that you choose or they choose. So all of them needs to be entered into a piece of paper, or which is what we call as an agreement between you and your client, when it is coming to the first step or level towards a matter management. I repeat a few of the points that we just discussed so far. So once again, the topic for today's session is law office matter management. It is entitled to 1 hour of CPD credits, professional some CPD credits, and I would be adding the attendance link here every now and then. I request each and every one of you to pay attention to the chat window so that you can ensure to provide your attendance and also make a note of the topic. So far, we discussed about client intake, how it contributes to a better matter management, and what are certain things that keep in mind, like, determining your method of payment or fee collection or retainer arrangements, and how do you like to get your client moving on with an engagement letter? What happens when there's a scenario where you have to provide them with a non-engagement letter, and do you do it or not? All of these part of it. And when it comes to a point where you're also taking care of the matter management from the aspect of retainer agreement, you enter all of them, keeping in mind the scope, the nature, and other responsibilities of the client, of yourself, everything once entered in, then you move on to creating the matter management. When it comes to matter management, what are a few things that you will, want to remember at the top of your mind? One of them is definitely a good file organization with a file numbering system and with a, maybe a cross-indexing number, and a bit more, which also includes the disbursements and retainers being entered in the right category, raising invoices and providing receipts on time, and updating the matter status to your client every now and then. So when it comes to updating the matter status, one of the important things to keep in mind is that if you have a file that is ongoing for more than a quarter, you will have to provide your client with a few information, few statements saying that, this is the amount that is available in the trust account that was utilized towards this invoice and what is pending and all of those. So at this moment, one of the most important information to note is that when you have a file checklist, you know what you have given your client so far and what is pending and more. Over here, you also have other things that you'll need to consider, including your phone conversation with the client, other docketing, as well as disbursement management when it comes to whether you're paying on their behalf, or let's say your client has paid that money into trust and you're utilizing that towards the disbursements and more. So one of the important points again here to note is that when you are raising an invoice, you want to make sure that the disbursements and the legal fee are bifurcated and they're not combined together. You want to show your client the services rendered for the legal fee and the reimbursement of expenses under disbursement. Now, many of us merge both together and make a mistake, and it gets added to the revenue, even though it's not your service revenue, which is what I'm talking about, the disbursement. So please make sure that if you want a good matter management or a file management, you want to make sure you're adding them into it. So when it comes to disbursement management, there is, like I said, a separate topic on what needs to be added under disbursements directly and so, right? And matter status updating is super important, because every now and then a client would like to know what they have paid into trust, how much has been used towards the how much of the retainer has been used towards the file so far, what is pending, and what do they owe you, or what do they get back as refund if everything is good. So all of these as part of matter status updating, generally it's shown as statement of activities or settlement statement or quarter. These are all some sort of quarterly statements that comes under matter status updating, so which is provided to your clients every now and then, especially if a file is going on for more than 2 or 3 months. That being said, moving on to type of disbursements. Now, I specifically mentioned that many of us try to miss out on showing disbursements in a separate tab altogether as disbursement, and we end up adding it under the legal fee. And you know what, because it's much easier, right? Because you just have to add a line item saying, oh, you know what, you owe me so and so. But when it comes to disbursement, it is very important to show your clients that this is not for the services that you had rendered. This is for an expense that you incurred on behalf of them, and that you're adding it under disbursement so they can reimburse you, which includes any billable items, anything that forms part of recovery of expenses that you have incurred on behalf of them, includes travel time, any postages, couriers, any mileages, unit rate, photocopies, all of these forms part of it. Whenever you have anything that is of a profit nature or a profit motive or a marked up value, you will never use trust for it, because trust is something that is used for non-profit transactions or non-marked up value transactions. So please use billable or unit rate or mileages, anything with keeping in mind if it is not of marked up value, you will use trust, and if it has any marked up value, you will use general. Like I said, we're going to have a detailed webinar on disbursements demystified. It's again a CPD topic. If I'm not wrong, it's there in one of the upcoming weekends, that is week Fridays. And please do not miss that session. It's a beautiful one. We talk about how do you handle different disbursements and more. Yeah, so coming back into what are the compliance documents that you will need for Law Society audit. Now, for a Law Society audit, one of the most important things that you would want to, an auditor is looking for, is definitely a client ID verification document. Now, it could be a client intake form, got something with the client intake form, or you do a virtual verification. You need to make sure that a client ID verification is done, and a client intake form has been captured with all the information. That includes invoices, retainer letter, receipts, any conflict checks, and more. So when it comes to non-engagement letter, it is for those clients who have ghosted, who needs to have all of those information recorded. So please make sure that you have the non-engagement letter for all those clients who have visited your office and not shown back to you. So this is something that is important, especially so that you're not being held responsible for any of their actions. So most of the times the non-engagement letter is not, kind of paid attention to. So you want to make sure you do that to enhance any of those chances for your, a non-engagement letter that is not being issued. So please make sure that a non-engagement letter is as important as an engagement letter is being issued. Due diligence every time there is a client that does not show up on, after the meeting or after the intake has been discussed. Now, other than that, it is definitely important to enter or provide information to your client on, statement of accounts, any of the, trust ledgers, trust statements, a very clear invoicing, and also the client contacts on matter status. Whenever a client provides you or rather asks you for information, such as update details on the quarterly status of the file or even the yearly update. So there are some files that goes for yearly, rather over a year. And yearly update includes statement of accounts that has both trust and general, or you can also provide with a trust ledger, trust plus general ledger. Now, there are also settlement statements and other statement of activity that is provided on a quarterly basis. Any bill of cost and summary is also provided, and disposition letter and closure letter towards the end of the file. Not until a file has been completed, but at least once it's completed. Sorry about that. Was a little hiccups. Yeah. So about the disposition letter and closure letter, this is something you will have to provide due diligently after every closure of a file. Now, many of us, end up the work a little abruptly because obviously we are so busy in taking the client, servicing and communicating with them. And, we tend to forget that a closure letter is equally important as a engagement letter, because you will want to provide your client with a nice closure letter for several reasons. And one of them is definitely as part of your law society compliances for matter management. So a closure letter is highly important too. So please note that when you're doing a matter management, or rather when you're working on a file and you're closing a file, all that you have to do is just click on a download button and provide it to them. Just definitely verify the other information. Just quickly posting the link for today's attendance as well as the topic for today's session. Trying to post every now and then, so for the ones joining in slightly late, you can make a note of it. I'll also be posting it towards the end of the session. Any questions, feel free to use the chat window at any time, and I'll be happy to walk you all through it. Now, as part of matter management, it is important that we follow certain law society regulations on regular basis by providing clients with certain documents that they are, requiring to know as part of this, whether it's a monthly requirement or a quarterly requirement or an annual requirement. A clear and crisp invoices and receipts for retainers and payments is highly recommended. And as a quarterly update, a client is able to send out a statement of activity. You are able to send out to the client a statement of activity. Now, when it comes to a statement of activity, you can show under it when the client paid a retainer, and has that been used towards an invoice, and what does that invoice contain, whether it's a block fee or an hourly fee, what was charged. So statement of activity is a detailed report, and of course, say a statement of activity and settlement of statement and accounts shows detailed report on all of the transactions that has happened over a period of time, and that the account should cover all the activities, including trust and general. As part of the quarterly update, the bill of cost and summary should cover all of the cost, total cost so far for that specific matter, and any of the disbursements and discounts that has been applied to. So bill of cost does show what was the total cost incurred for this particular file. When it comes to the yearly update, you should be able to cover the entire balance with the summary report, and you're also able to show the client what has happened in the file for the entire year, including the funds that came in, that went out, what was billed and what was transferred into the trust and general respectively. Now, quarterly updates done, yearly updates done, final statement that includes both settlement and accounts, especially when you're closing a matter, because it is like a settlement statement. Once you've sent a settlement statement, it'll be very clear and evident that the file is coming to a closure, and you're able to show all of those activities. That includes getting the money into the respective bank accounts, invoices, disbursements and legal fees shown under the invoices, and any payment that has been moved out of trust and more. Over here, we also have the final closure letter to ensure that client understands that this matter is fully closed. And once you provide them with a final closure letter, your client knows that there's no more going back on this matter, right? Because it has been closed, and they're not going to hold you responsible anymore if there's anything that is happening in the file. And, lastly, you don't want to be held responsible for something that is not under your, maybe radar of communication, or that is not under your requirement to do so. And of course, when a file is completed and you've done everything you need to, one of the important things to do here is to send a thank you note or a closure note, and at least a personalized envelope with a greeting saying thank you with your, with your logo or your letterhead, something to show to your client that, this is your brand, and, they can reach out to you at any point, for any other file, or refer you to friends. This is one of the important steps when it comes to, we've also spoken about this, I think, in another webinar when it comes to client intake, where, it's very important to show your clients the branding and the personalization, and, it takes the professional relationship into the next level by referring you to their friends, or also by having some repetitive clients when they come back to you when the same client comes back to you for another file or another matter. So these small things as a great matter management takes your client relationship into the next level overall. And for a good file management, it's also important that you have the additional parties entered into their respective fields and how you manage them, how the coworkers are being managed as a group of contacts, how the vendors are being managed as group of contacts, are they being entered under the respective group of contacts, and how do you manage the relationship of the client, and are you able to automate it from different softwares? Are you able to enter them into the software altogether? So it's important that you add in the additional party so that you can use the software to generate the code forms with auto-filling capacity, because all of those details that are captured by the software will be automated for you to add in all the information, so that it will help you save more time. Now, code form automation for a lot of files such as, or rather area of practices such as small claims, landlord, tenant board, family, criminal, other area of practices definitely help you in saving time and being more accurate, for which the data entry, including providing information on additional parties, are important. So managing additional parties, adding the respective information under the respective tabs helps you to automate information and use the automated code forms and more. So if you're all using uLaw, you know how the automated code forms definitely helps you to keep your matter management intact. And one of them is definitely using the mobile app. Now, if you're someone who does docketing on the go, like you did a phone call with your client, you'd like to have them docketed, just pick the phone, use the mobile app to call your client. Once you're done, the mobile app will prompt you if you'd like to add in as a docket, and then it takes you from there. So docket on the go, docket any telephone conversation, making it more comfortable, making it more faster and accurate, and any email conversations being recorded. You do not miss them. That is another key point. You do not miss out on any docket by doing so, right? Because when you use these mobile apps to call a client or to email a client, there's so many things that it tends to slip our mind. And when you are using a mobile app or a mobile docketing, all of these can be recorded on the go. And understanding all the other financial details with analyzing all of those business insights during your off hours is a great boon, because you don't want to definitely sit and spend all your time on analyzing the numbers while we analyze and provide you as reports. And all that you have to do is log into your mobile app to take a look at what is happening there. Now, mobile docketing not only allows you to add in clients, but also allows you to docket, allows you to do the matter analytics, shows you any description, and more. So now, if you ask me, if you're someone who's using uLaw, I would say most of your docketing should be happening from the phone, especially if you're using the mobile app to contact a client, or if you're using a mobile app while you're meeting up with the client and more. Now, this has benefited many of them in a way that they save a lot of time, and they're also able to do more by just adding mobile docketing. So mobile apps are available for both Android and iOS. So all that you have to do is just simply download the mobile app from your respective Play stores and you'll be able to, do all of these mobile app related activities directly from there. Talking about uLaw's presence for better matter management, let me walk you all through how it is done using uLaw. Just quickly logging into my Playground account and showing all of you how it is being done. Once you're into your uLaw, this is applicable for uLaw mobile app users too. So once you're in there, and all that you should be looking to do is, simply add in the contacts and then do your due diligence at the client level first by clicking on action, doing a conflict check, or even click on compliance to do other things, which includes conflict check, aging report, and other things that you would want to generate. Once that is done, then you can move on to the matter management level, where you would create a matter or a file by adding in the matter details. That includes, a title, a rate per file, and more. So let's just take a simple file. You can add a new client. Want to make sure you add in as much information or add in all the information. Click on save, and then once you click on save, you're going to click on action to do the conflict check. You do all of those as part of the client management. Once the conflict check is done, you would go ahead creating a file or a matter. For creating a file or a matter, you're just going to simply click on matter, start entering the file details. Now, you want to enter as much as information as possible to ensure there is accuracy. And, if you have any matter description, you could use the matter description. You could use the hourly rates, your assistant's hourly rates, and more. Once you save them, the first piece of paper that you'd like to give, rather the agreement that you'd like to give your client, let's say the retainer agreement is available under the compliance once again. You want to specify what is the retainer amount that you'd like to get and download it. Once you have the retainer letter in place, then you will be able to download the other Law Society compliance documents. Like, let's say there's a file opening checklist that you want to do. Just simply click on download and you'll be able to do the file opening checklist. The checklist will show each and everything that is needed. Let me show you all how the file opening checklist looks. Yeah, there you go. Of course, the other information will be automated. We'll ask you whether, you have is there a joint retainer? Have you obtained the client ID? Is the client, are they transferring any funds? Will there be any receipts into trust account, and more? Now, once that is done, then you can move on to downloading the other documents, which includes the client intake, client ID verification that has been done. And once all of those are done, then you can get it signed and put it into the file and move on. We also have, as part of the quarterly review statements, we have the statement of activity, settlement plus summary, bill of cost. So the statement of activity will show all of the details on the recent activity related stuff, like, if there's anything that is prepared here. So right now it's showing 0 because I've not added in any docket. So let's say, for an instance, add in a docket saying client intake, then there's another docket saying drafting. So it took me so and so time. If you want to add any description, you can add that. So once that's done, you just click on invoice, complete, preview. Let's see, just in a rush on getting it done. You want to see how it looks in the statement of activity. Okay, here you go. This is the invoice. Now I go back and raise the statement of activity to show you how it looks. Right now we have the 2 dockets with the hours that was actually billed, or rather actually taken, and the billed hours. And you also have who it was prepared for and more. When you take, let's say, this was made as a payment into the general account, I want to show how the other quarterly statement looks and what is the purpose and importance behind providing such statement. It makes your client feel comfortable working with you. They know for a very fact that every now and then you're updating the status. So the matter status is being updated from time to time, whether it is an ongoing file or it is closed file, it is an active file and more, alongside with how much was paid, how much was transferred, how much is yet to be paid, and all of those. Just going back into the matter and showing you all how it looks when the disbursement is done for an invoice. So let's say you're paying a disbursement out of your general account. Let's say it's an application fee spent. Okay. Then you're using your general account. This is the online transfer for a pre-authorized debit. For a better matter management, it's always recommended to add in as much as information as possible. Click on save. And now when you go into accounts, or when you even go into matter to do a simple invoice complete, you would see how invoice with the disbursement looks like, with just information such as, a disbursement and what are the reference numbers and more. Okay, so there's nothing as docket. When you go down, you will see the disbursement, application fee, and all of those, and what the client owes you further. If there's anything entered there. And when you do get another payment, I'd like to show how the settlement plus statement looks for a quarterly statement that you need to provide. Who have received from there you go. Once it's been applied, I have to click on compliance and download settlement plus accounts. Sorry, my system keyboard is having an issue, so just bear with me. Yeah, so that is the settlement plus accounts. Shows you all your dockets with the legal fee for your first invoice, with the invoice number. That is the level of matter management. Shows you separate invoice numbers, the date, everything is captured, including the matter number, title, invoices that you have paid in so far by the client, and what is the balance if there's anything. Who was it prepared by? So this is really important to update the file status every now and then, especially if it's an ongoing file. So try and use them from time to time, and you'll be able to add in all the information and show it to your client. When you go back, let's say for an instance that this particular file is all done, its balance is 0, so you'd like to download a closing letter to show your client how it looks. So you can just say, in order to conclude the file, and outline all of this information that you see here, and you can just save this, sign this, and send it to them. Likewise, when you are not proceeding with a file and for some reason you have not passed, or you are not interested, or the client has not come back to you, ghosted you, and this is a very important thing to provide them a non-engagement letter. I think we spoke about this much earlier too, that it is important to share a non-engagement letter if you're not representing them for any reason. And this is how it looks. So for a good matter management, a good communication with the client is number one. Keeping in mind communication from every now and then at the point when you reach out to them with a client intake form, with a file checklist for yourself in-house to ensure you have created everything, you have shared everything, and that right now you are working on several things that you'd like to show them. And, it also includes whether you are, looking to collect money, then you need to issue a retainer letter. Try and do everything possible in a flow. That way you have everything covered right from the day one, and that you're able to match with your checklist, as well as the compliances that needs to be covered over a due course of representing a matter. That is what forms part of a good matter management. Now, as a proper law office matter management, please keep in mind that all of these, just not by doing one of them, it is going to help you, but by doing all of this over a period of time and following that cycle will get you to a very efficient law office matter management. I think I'm almost to the end of the webinar today. I'd like to open the floor for any questions, and I can also post once again the link for today's session and also the topic for today's session. Both attendance link and topic is being posted here once again. And I thank each and every one of you for attending the webinar. I hope it was helpful. We would also encourage you to share your thoughts and more topics that you're all looking to hear from us. Will be helpful for us to, definitely do more new topics. And we're also encouraging any feedbacks if you would like us to, work on anything specific. But thanking each and every one of you for showing up here today in spite of a Friday afternoon. Please do make it, unless and until you receive a cancellation email. uLaw will conduct a webinar every Friday from 2 to 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And I think every alternate week is a CPD webinar. So do let us know if you're looking for any specific topics to hear from us. Thank you. I will stay here to see if there are any more questions, and I'll be happy to answer them. But I'm going to turn off the recording so the ones viewing it later will not find it too lengthy. There are some useful links that are going to be shared here. I request each and every one of you to stay back and note down the links. There are some really useful resources. But all of you, thank you and have a wonderful weekend.